What If Luffy Ambition of a God? Part 1. By Soluxy. Aftermath. After the aftermath of the War of the Best, Luffy's heart gives out. Because of it, he loses his devil fruit. Armed with a strong ambition and an unshakable resolve, a new Luffy intends to take on the new world. Warnings: this story is very dark compared to the original One Piece story. Expect a lot of gore and death, and I mean a lot. It only gets worse as time goes on and the Straw Hats keep piling bodies all around them. There will be genderbending of some key characters. Godlike Luffy coupled with stronger-than-canon Straw Hats. 3D2Y, Revival Monkey D. Luffy, an infamous person known worldwide for the incidents he committed, was called by most a troublemaker rookie who stumbled his way into a victory against a warlord of the sea, Crocodile, in Alabasta, and became notorious from that fortunate win. Yet, recent events have made people reform their views on this individual. One of the most notable incidents this man has produced was the destruction of the Judicial Island, better known as Enies Lobby. It was devastated. Perhaps it served as a symbol that fairness had disappeared. The message passed after seeing the island burn was that criminals could no longer be judged fairly. But to some scholars, the concept of fairness never existed in the world to begin with. Sad, but it was the right line of thinking. All one could say was, it was truly unfortunate. Monkey D. Luffy, the pirate, the criminal, the worst. His body was in tatters after fighting numerous grueling battles from Impel down to Marineford. Critical wounds covered his body enough to make a man crippled for life. If that wasn't enough, he also suffered the tragic loss of his older brother Portgas D. Ace, who died at the hands of Admiral Akainu. In the process of sacrificing himself, he saved Luffy's life. There was nothing else the man Portgas D. Ace could have done. To save his brother, Ace gave his own life. There weren't just physical wounds on Monkey D. Luffy's body, there were also deep, unending scars. These scars did not mar his body. Instead, they branded his mind and his heart. Terrible scars that constantly hurt. Nevertheless, these mental scars wouldn't have time to do that terrible work. To state the truth and nothing but the truth. Monkey D. Luffy, this man with the straw hat. This man whose goal was to become Pirate King. This man who wanted it all. This man was dying. They say a moment is all that's needed to change history. A single moment can upset the balance of the world and give birth to hope. However, hope can only be born in the face of despair. The question remains. Monkey D. Luffy, the dying man, could he ever grasp hope and salvation amid the drowning sea of despair? On a distant sea, after the War of the Best where both Ace and Whitebeard had made their last stand, a submarine of yellow paint emerged from the water. That submarine was owned by none other than the Heart Pirates. If one would ask, the Heart Pirates are an infamous and notable pirate crew from the North Blue. Their captain, Trafalgar Law, is a member of the worst generation. What is Luffy's condition? We would like to know. An impossibly stunning woman walked forward. Her steps were bold and loud. There was a marine battleship docked on the side of the submarine. On the marine battleship, unusually, there were many life-size statues of Marines on board with hearts in their eyes. They weren't sculptures, no, they were humans who turned into stone. They would probably remain so for a long time, or even forever. It all depended on the mood of the most beautiful woman in the world and one of the most powerful warlords of the sea, the pirate Empress Boa Hancock. To those who turned into stone, there was no difference from death, and by the lovely woman's mood, they were as good as dead. There was no other way to say it. Those Marines were dead by her design. Man, good job figuring out that we emerged here. I thought the Marines were still tracking us or something. Is this some kind of sick joke? A white bear with an orange jumpsuit asked, ignoring Hancock's question about Luffy's status. We had Salome trace you on the ocean floor. She can truly swim well. Boa Hancock pointed at her unusual royal snake, her precious companion. After the War of the Best, she had no injuries on her person. She was still as peerless as ever, which in turn showed her perfect strength. And you, bear, how dare you try and change the subject like that, you mere beast. Boa Hancock chastised the bear for ignoring her question about Luffy's condition. The white bear lowered his head, depression setting in. Sorry, the white bear managed to speak out amongst his downtrodden depression. So weak-willed. The other two crew members of the Heart Pirates cried in surprise at the weakness and cowardice of the bear when other people talked poorly of him. Trafalgar Law opened the door, rubbing his bloody hands in a cloth. His face had some drops of blood that he finally wiped. "Captain," the bear cried, "I did all that I could. Although for this type and difficulty of operation, well, his life is currently being preserved, but," he continued, wiping the blood from his hands as Boa remained silent, "he's accumulated an unbelievable amount of damage. There's no sign that he will be able to come back." After that revelation, Boa Hancock still stayed silent. Her blue, gem-like eyes glittered with worry, and a cold sweat formed on her forehead. "Hee-haw!" a voice reverberated in the air. "What in God's name is that?" The Heart Pirates cried in surprise once again at the new arrival. A man wearing a strange leather suit with a giant head compared to his body, having a purple afro and purple makeup, yelled. His body was leaning from the marine ship. He was an individual named Emporio Ivankov, king of Kamabaka Queendom. His people were also with him on the deck of the marine ship. That's right, Straw Boy gave his best. Thanks to him, we managed to escape. Ivankov showed off what Luffy did for them. The prisoners from Impel Down, it seems that they're on Luffy's side. They snuck on the marine's ship, Boa remarked with a bit of an unimpressed tone. They were Luffy's friends, so she would tolerate them for the time being. Now we can finally journey to the Kamabaka Kingdom we've been dreaming of for years. From Newkama Land to the headquarters of Newkamas, they cheered at his speech as the Heart Pirates stared dumbfounded at them. Ivankov landed on the submarine deck. He then took a more serious tone. Straw Boy's body was already withered to the point where he could no longer even stand and impel down. I'm amazed he was able to cause so much mayhem at Marineford. Ivankov gave a bit of praise for Luffy's wild side. It was all for the sake of rescuing Ace. And to think that same elder brother died in front of him, protecting him. Straw Boy. Ivankov had a bit of a forlorn expression. If I give up here, I'll regret it. Ivankov thought back to what Luffy said. What god would permit that? That's something that would easily crumble someone's mind, nay, two minds. To think Straw Boy is passing through something so tragic. Ivankov was sweating with worry. Come on, you can do it, Straw Hat. Hang in there, the newcomers cried, remembering the chant they did back in the prison when he was poisoned by the Great Warden Magellan. What a tragedy. We wish we could have gone in his place. Poor Luffy. Boa Hancock said as she faced away, her warm tears cascading down with worry for his mind. The Heart Pirates cried in envy because the Pirate Empress's affection was directed at the little guy with the straw hat. Although, thinking again, that wasn't a very enviable position to be in, critical condition and such, it wasn't worth it. By the by, who are you? Are you Straw Boy's friend? Ivankov asked the Supernova, one of the members of the worst generation. No, I am not, Law answered. I have no obligation to save him either. If you're that worried about my motives, I could come up with a reason, Law continued as he faced Ivankov. Ivankov crossed his arms. No thanks. There are times where our bodies move without reason, Ivankov responded. Hey, wait, one of Law's crewmates shouted. Jimbei, you are still hurt, the crewmate continued his warnings. The Knight of the Sea arrived on deck while huffing and puffing due to the pain of just moving his muscles. His body was bandaged through and through, hiding his sunbrand as he clutched his chest. His body had sustained 2 injuries in the war from Admiral Sakazuki. Only now had the warlord awakened from the war. Trafalgar Law of the North Blue. I thank you for saving my life. Jimbei thanked the captain of this submarine wholeheartedly. Go back to your bed and sleep, Jimbei. You are going to die, Ivankov said seriously. The way he said, die, would have given any normal person a shiver up their spine. Jimbei, with his honorable nature, explained his feelings in heartrending pain while retelling stories of Ace and how important he was to the Knight of the Sea as a highly regarded friend and comrade in arms. My heart will not settle down, not when Luffy-kun is wavering between life or death. For me, who was close to Ace-san, this sense of loss is impossible to bear. But what I am most afraid of is the time that he wakes up. Luffy-kun is his brother. The sense of loss isn't heartbreaking anymore, it's soul-crushing. Jimbei said, making everyone realize how bad of a situation Luffy was in. Beast, do you have a transponder snail? Boa asked. Yeah. Oh, yes, we do, ma'am. Sorry, the White Bear's depression returned. You are like the Empress's slave or something, his crewmate commented, receiving another, sorry, from the bear. If we call the Kuja pirates, we can cross the calm belt and heal Luffy. If Luffy's survival is made known to the government, they will not relent. We witnessed this at Marineford. We must hide in my kingdom, and as long as we hold the title of warlord, we will be able to treat him safely and without foreign interference. Boa Hancock ordered the men around as if she were their captain. The big-name pirates were a bit taken aback by her authoritative prowess. Well then, my mission to protect Straw Boy ends here. Can I leave the rest to you, Jimbei? Ivankov said as he jumped towards the ship where his people were situated. Yes. I still can't swim freely with these wounds. I will ascertain Luffy's recovery with my own eyes. The newcomers cheered a goodbye as Ivankov steered the ship away from the submarine and the Kuja pirates' ship that had arrived. If fate may have it, then let us meet again. Don't you die now, Luffy? With Luffy's fate still uncertain, the coalition of pirates traveled towards the Island of Women, Amazon Lily. Treated as a special exception, the Heart Pirates were allowed to stay and dock on the beach far from the actual city. Captain, his heart is giving out. One of his crewmates cried. Luffy was convulsing and groaning in pain. Hurry and hold him down. Damn, this isn't looking good. Inject him with an antidiuretic hormone and prepare for manual resuscitation. The situation looked grim and the atmosphere was suffocating. The seconds that ticked by felt like hours, and everyone held their breath as Law did his best to stabilize Luffy. In the end, however, he failed as Luffy's heart rate monitor flatlined. Silence descended upon the occupants of the room as the harsh reality they were faced with dawned upon them. Regardless of their best efforts, the outcome was still a failure. Damn, Law punched a wall in frustration. His pride as a doctor was severely crushed. On this day, Edward Newgate, Portgas D. Ace, and Monkey D. Luffy died. However, even if he died, it was not the end of Luffy's adventure. Where am I? Luffy was on the ground kneeling, his hands on the floor. He had no clothes on. Memories kept rushing into his head so much that it was giving him a massive headache. The realization set in. I see. I lost Ace. His hands cupped his face painfully, pressing his cheeks so hard that a normal human would have had their skull broken. His eyes were so narrowed they were creasing his forehead to abnormal levels as his fingernails poked into his cheeks. His eyes scanned the whiteness of space. Where? Oh, a white space that goes on forever. I am probably dead. He started laughing at himself. I am such a weakling. I couldn't save my crew. Bon-chan sacrificed himself so I could escape, and in the end of it all, I couldn't even save Ace. He started crying in earnest. Frustration piling upon frustration. What was he even doing? What had he been doing all this time? He crouched and kept his head low in disappointment. All that talk about being Pirate King and I couldn't do nothing against them. He remembered Aokiji, Kizaru, Magellan, Blackbeard, Hawkeye, and Akainu. How they were so strong and looked down on him. He wasn't a match for them. There was an unsurmountable mountain between them and him, one he couldn't cross no matter what he tried. He clenched his hands painfully, his wrists clicked with the force, almost breaking as he punched the ground, making 2 craters on the white floor. His tears flowed freely. He cried and screamed and yelled for hours. There was so much pain in his heart that he wanted to disappear so it could stop. He wanted everything to stop. He wanted everyone to just die. That's how he felt at this moment. He had been a complete weakling without power to back up his own recklessness, and it cost him everything. Another sibling was taken from him. First Sabo, now Ace. What's next? His comrades. He stopped that train of thought. He stopped mourning. He spent hours, days, here in this white space. There was a simple explanation for why he stopped screaming. His friends were still alive. That's all that mattered to a straightforward heart like Luffy's. I can't stay dead like this. He clutched his chest. His eyes shined with defiance and ambition. My dream of Pirate King will not end here. It cannot finish here. I am not a man who will end here. Luffy's whole body seemed to move. The heaviness in his movements caused an oppressive atmosphere that gathered around him as if a storm blessed him. His burning desire for the One Piece shone through, though now he had an additional dream, remembering one of the titles Old Man Whitebeard had. He wanted that title. He craved that title now with all his heart, and it wasn't Emperor of the Sea. He mustered his fists, raised himself from the ground, and screamed his new dream to the high white heavens. I will become the most powerful man in the world. His yell, fueled by his ambition, made the ground heave as if it were alive, as if it were in awe of his splendor and greed. Luffy could honestly say that it felt like the ground was massaging his feet. The air around touched him as if worshipping his will. So that I will not lose another loved one ever again. Law was about to give the bad news after mourning for about 9 minutes. However, he heard a strong heartbeat. He looked shocked at the monitor. It had flatlined for more than 9 minutes. The son of dragon should have already been brain dead. Straw Hat yaw. He rushed towards Luffy's side, confirming his miraculous revival. I will not lose you again. I am one of the best doctors in the Grand Line. Ya hear? He worked tirelessly for what seemed like hours, and finally, Luffy was stable enough. His wounds were healing at an astonishing rate, confirming the strong vitality of the monkey family. By this point, Law was fatigued and collapsed in his own medical bay. Then, after the warlord rested, someone else opened his eyes. Luffy jumped out of his bed, his body moving with his will with no difficulty due to fatigue or wounds. Watch out! Calm down, Straw Hat! One of the heart pirates cried. Within the territory of Amazon Lily, in the throne room of the Amazons, Boa Hancock sat there worried. Snake Princess. Luffy has awakened. He came back to life. One woman of her crew reported as she entered the room. Luffy-sama, the servants exclaimed, happy that he was up. Oh, really? Ha! What joy! We wish to meet him at once. Boa could not hold her joy at the thought of seeing her beloved again. Snake Princess. Everyone wants to meet Luffy, I understand that, but if you meet him alone, it's going to give off a bad example toward the Amazonians on the island. There are laws that need to be upheld, the elderly lady spoke. Quote ellipsis exclamation mark. We know that. Hancock struggled to speak, as if getting separated for just a minute was enough to have her heart broken. More importantly, sister, your meal. Sandersonia, one of her sisters, spoke out. That's right. You haven't eaten since you've got here. Marigold matched her sister, urging Hancock to eat, yet it had an unintended effect. That's right. Luffy must be quite famished. Prepare a feast for him at once. She ordered her servants. Yes, ma'am, gladly. They were overjoyed to prepare a feast for Luffy-sama. He was quite exalted by the population, and most women on the island adored him. We shall help out with the meal as well. Boa Hancock spoke as she raised her beautiful self from the throne. We shall make sure. It is the best food our husband has ever had. Boa Hancock said with a serious and passionate face. Husband? Gloriosa cried out in surprise. Where did that guy Jinbei go? One of the heart pirates asked. He went after Straw Hat, I think. Well, he rushed into the thick jungle, the other responded. Law picked up the straw hat that Monkey D. Luffy wore, a silent look on his face as he recovered from his fatigue. There was a trail of destruction in the forest. Luffy's fists were bleeding. He tried extending his arms, trying to use his power over rubber, the fruit of rubber he ate from Shanks. However, he couldn't understand. He didn't understand what was happening. Where had his power gone? Where was his devil fruit? He sat on a rock and looked toward his newly made friend Jinbei. Luffy's glare could pierce any man, and in one of his hands was the vivre card for the old man Rayleigh. The paper was full of his own blood and a bit moist from the liquid. Jinbei was silent, remembering the past and his promise to take care of Luffy that he made with Ace back in the dark depths of Impel Down. He promised Ace he would take care of his little brother should he ever die, and as fate would have it, it was truly unfortunate. Luffy-kun, the war is over. Ace-san is. Jinbei did not look down. He met Luffy's silver eyes head-on. Dead. Luffy's voice cut through. The voice that came out was deadly serious and silent, yet those words could cut through and intimidate most people. It was so uncharacteristic of the easygoing and passionate Luffy. His silent tears bled through. Luffy had already come to terms with the death. Jinbei sat toward him and listened to the young man talk about his frustrations. Luffy, in turn, confided in him about his wants and desires, that he'd been a complete fool this whole time, a reckless idiot without the power to back up his own words. Only now did he realize that the darkness of the world was always around, and that he wasn't untouchable to its misery. Jinbei, I want to see my crew again. However, I am too weak like this. I lost my devil fruit. I couldn't win against all of those tough opponents. I need to get stronger. Luffy looked at Jinbei, the truth coming out. He was still weakened by the wounds on his body, but they were healing. Luffy-kun, you need to heal your wounds first. After that, you will know what to do. He carried Luffy on his back toward the beach. Whoa! Rayleigh! Luffy called out to the muscular old man on the shore, sitting on a stone. A happy expression overcame both. Luffy-kun, he gave his greetings. The heart pirates that Law commanded were gone, and the old man had the straw hat in his hand. What are you doing here? I believe my vivre card is still pointing towards the sea. Luffy grinned. I left mine with Shaki back on Sabaody Archipelago, Rayleigh responded. It was at this moment that Boa Hancock and Company arrived. A cart of food was being delivered by them. Both sisters and Gloriosa greeted Rayleigh, but Boa only fussed over Luffy. However, Boa noticed something different about her beloved. He seemed more mature. Although he still joked around with everyone else, she could see a serious look cross his face. To her, he appeared even more attractive. Luffy, I could barely sleep. I was so worried about you. Here, I prepared a feast for you, Hancock said as she put her fingers on the fruits. Luffy grabbed her hand. His eyes intensely stared at her face. His eyes searched her thoroughly as if discovering something new about her. Hancock, thank you, for everything. Her face was reddened, and she almost fainted due to the sudden closeness and intensity from his silver eyes. Jinbei noticed the assortment of foods, his stomach growling like a tiger. Jinbei, we did not prepare this food for you. She recovered quickly from her funk. Hancock, it's okay, he is my friend. Luffy patted her head. She almost fainted. No more than a mouthful, you hear? A dragon's roar was heard all around the island. All looked at Luffy's stomach. He blushed a bit, scratching his neck. Luffy-kun, you should eat up, for to eat is to live. Jinbei gave him a heartwarming smile. Luffy did not need to think twice. He rested on the grass near his friend Jinbei and attacked the food like a man possessed, placing fruits, seafood, meat, and all other assortments of foods in his mouth. Afterward, Luffy invited Rayleigh and Hancock to eat with him. Rayleigh started discussing the letter Shaki sent to the Snake Sisters. It was finally then that Boa noticed Rayleigh. Gloriosa was shocked at her lack of attention to anything that wasn't her beloved. So Luffy-kun, how are you feeling? Rayleigh asked. Luffy was strangely composed. Even after waking up, he hadn't broken down mentally. I feel like I was hit by an entire warship. Everything hurts. If I move my arm, it feels like it's ripping apart. If I move my neck, it strains severely, Luffy said with a sigh. It's not surprising you're in that much pain considering what you went through. It's pretty normal, so it seems you're doing alright for the time being, Jinbei said. No, this is far from normal, at least for me, Luffy told them. I'm a rubber man. Pain isn't something I feel, regardless of the kind of beating I take. It's one of the reasons I won the many fights I was in so far. Luffy looked toward his hands as he told them how his power over rubber worked and how much it helped him to be the man he was today. My endurance and stamina, as well as my ability to tank as many hits, mostly come from my rubber powers. The fact that I'm feeling this much pain after almost 10 years probably means that I lost my ability entirely, Luffy said nonchalantly to those around him as he punched the air and his arm failed to stretch like before. The fruit of rubber wasn't inside of him anymore. The others were shocked, but Rayleigh, on the other hand, laughed heartily. He already predicted this outcome, so he wasn't surprised. Trafalgar Law had already told him that Luffy was dead for more than 9 minutes. What did surprise him was Luffy's calm and nonchalant attitude. It wasn't a bad thing. In fact, he welcomed that emotional maturity, but he'd like to know the reason behind it. You seem awfully calm about this considering the circumstances. Not counting the traumatic events you went through, you were also dead for almost 9 minutes. That is the reason you probably lost your ability. It was a close call. Rayleigh explained to them why Luffy had lost his powers for good while staring at Luffy's eyes with a smirk. Is there a reason why you're not panicking or throwing a tantrum as I expected you to? Rayleigh asked Luffy with a knowing smile on his face. He deduced that Luffy reached a similar conclusion as he did and was happy. Now his plan would go a lot more smoothly. The Gorgon sisters, Jinbei, and Gloriosa chose to be silent and just watch things play out between the two for now. Ace is dead. Nothing can change that now. I was too caught up in his promise that he would never die, that I did not want to believe it, that I'd rather close my eyes and cover my ears to the truth. I already cried enough, Luffy said, as he ran his fingers through his hair. Then what happened? Obviously, you're still alive, so it stands to reason something gave you the strength to fight your way back, Rayleigh asked, knowing Luffy's answer. I was in a white room. I don't know if it was a dream or if it was the afterlife, but I spent a long time there crying and coming to terms with Ace's death. Luffy said with a forlorn look into the distant sky on the horizon, before facing the group. But I've come to terms with it. I have a lot to live for. I will not let my dream come to an end. I will be the Pirate King. He yelled to the high heavens, and it was as if the heavens acceded to his wish. Everyone was happy for Luffy. He had his spirit back at last. However, at that instant that he yelled, reddish-black cracks in space all around Luffy thundered across the island. A shockwave washed over and reached more than 100 kilometers off the coast. That was his Supreme King's haki. The absolute weight of his ambition washed over them. Everyone was stunned and surprised. However, Boa Hancock was strangely self-conscious. It was like a lover's touch caressing her skin with her beloved's desire to attain everything the world had to offer. The man she had fallen for was an incredible person indeed. Luffy calmed, and the storm with him. I have many people who care about me. Back home in Goa Kingdom. All the friendships that I made in my adventure, all of my comrades, they are waiting for me. They still care about me. I know it for certain. No matter what man I will become, I am still me. Luffy said as he stood up, not giving a damn about the pain in his legs. I hate that I am the last of my siblings, but I can't let this drag me down forever. It is frustrating. I've done all I could in the war, but like many people told me, being courageous isn't enough. I lacked strength and Ace died because of it. Luffy closed his eyes in deep thought, uncharacteristic of the 17-year-old until now, but this was also a sign of deep change within him. Given my weakness, I've decided. I am going to become the strongest man this world has ever seen. That was the title the old Whitebeard had, wasn't it? He asked, determination shining through his deep eyes as he opened them. Oh, I can see you've taken things seriously, and I can tell you've reached the same conclusion as me. So, what do you want to do now? Asked Rayleigh in all seriousness. Now was the time to see whether Luffy knew what was to be done. Luffy took a while to settle his thoughts. He looked up at Rayleigh with a fierce will burning in his eyes. What I want is to see my crew again. What I want is to get back on my ship and go on more fun and exciting adventures with them, Luffy exclaimed passionately. Rayleigh nodded in understanding, but an undertone of disappointment could be detected. He was happily surprised, however, by Luffy's next words. As much as I want that to happen. I know that right now, it's not what I need. Jinbei and Hancock looked shocked, as did the others. They knew how desperately Luffy wanted to reunite with his crew. He had said so on many occasions. They had come to realize how much he cherished the bonds he created and knew the relationships he had with his crewmates were unbreakable. Hearing such words from him was a little unsettling, and it worried them, especially Hancock. She remembered the time before she got to know him and fell in love with him. How he profusely begged her, on his knees even, and threw away his pride and dignity in order to obtain a ship to leave the island to find his crew. She remembered the look of complete and utter joy plastered upon his face when she agreed to lend him said ship. Although, at the time, she felt sad at the thought of him leaving and never seeing him again. However, fate decided to flip the proverbial table on his reunion and throw the boy into a whirlwind of events that culminated in the loss of his brother, his own death, and his subsequent resuscitation. Of course, he had fought through that, and knowing him as well as she thought she did, she assumed the first thing he would do was ask to find his crew and reunite with them, especially after going through such an experience. She felt that Luffy needed them now more than ever, even though she wanted to be the one to comfort him. Even if she did wish from the depths of her heart that he would regard her with as much importance as he gave to his comrades. Still, he was a man who never failed to surprise those around him. The fact that he seemed so serious about this was even more alarming. I don't understand, Luffy. You've been desperate to find your crew since I first met you. I thought for sure after all that has happened that you would want to be with them, Hancock stated, an unusually solemn expression directed at Luffy. All traces of her fawning side disappeared. She was now serious and stern. This was truly the face of the cool and indomitable pirate empress. After witnessing her slightly eccentric behavior around him, Luffy had almost forgotten that underneath all those layers she put up lay a fierce and powerful warrior, one who had reached warlord status, a title only held by 7 people in the wide world. He couldn't help but be captivated by her strength of spirit, even if that adoration lasted only a few seconds. After all, this was the woman to whom he would be forever indebted. After a second, he regained his composure before taking on a serious expression. He faced her with an equal level of presence. It was his form of giving respect to her. There are too many tough enemies in my adventure. To become the Pirate King, I need to become much stronger. I feel something inside of me waiting to burst out. I can grow stronger still. But right now, I am weak. Luffy pointed at his chest. Luffy-kun, don't be ridiculous. You are strong. I've seen that for Mies. Jinbei was cut off from his attempt to reassure Luffy by the man himself. Jinbei, please let me finish. I used to think of myself as strong. Luffy walked forward and sat on a rock next to Rayleigh. I didn't have much else to boast about. What strength? Luffy continued, getting a bit more comfortable to tell his story. I was raised by mountain bandits. Strength was all that mattered in that place. However, that strength wasn't enough. I came to the Grand Line with a crew of 5 on a small ship, armed with a devil fruit, and thought I could take on the world. And I did, for the most part. I don't mean to talk big, but how many other rookies can claim to have defeated 2 members of the warlords? To have saved a country from civil war? To have defeated a man who styled himself a god and to have crushed one of the most powerful and feared assassins from the government's CP9? To be the reason Enies lobby was sunk to the ground? To lead the greatest escape Impel Down, the impervious prison, has ever had? This was all within a few months of our journey. I don't think any rookie can boast of doing all of this. Luffy continued his monologue with a fond smile as he recounted the many achievements he and his crew shared. However, he took on a more solemn countenance as he continued. While all those look like good achievements on paper and speech, and they make me seem really strong, in the end, that's all a lie. He faced them with a serious look. All those battles I fought drove me to the brink of death. I had to struggle. I barely crawled my way out of them. My crew was in just as much danger. It was only thanks to my devil fruit abilities that I miraculously survived. He put into perspective how much those adventures could have cost him and his crew. In the end, you can say that I did pull through, and those experiences made me a better person. Sure, I did win against all odds. But now, looking back, it all seems so hollow. While I consider myself strong, I don't think I'm as strong as I could or should have been right now. Luffy could have done better. He could have done much better. If there was only a way to return in time and do it all over again, he would take it right now. But this was not to be. He had to live with the consequences of his actions and the actions of the world around him. Reversing the past was an impossibility. That's what I meant when I said I'm weak. Luffy finished his story with a downcast expression, his jaw clenched. The others looked to be contemplating what they had just heard. Although they wanted to refute his self-deprecating views, they didn't know the full story of Monkey D. Luffy, having only known him a short while. They chose silence over any sudden remarks that could be insensitive to the boy's current situation. Rayleigh, though, was happy at this development. He had been a little worried about Luffy and whether he would be prepared for what was to come, especially with Whitebeard dead and the world thrown into chaos. He thought he might have a tough job trying to persuade him to agree to his proposal, but now it seemed his worries were unfounded. Luffy had found the path he wanted to take on his own. Rayleigh couldn't help but feel a little proud of the emotional maturity the boy seemed to be going through. He patted him on the shoulder and encouraged him to continue. He knew the boy needed to get this off his chest. When I was young, my grandfather looked after me. I didn't know my mother or father. Grandfather always raised me with the mentality of joining the Marines. I never questioned it much. I was a little boy. I didn't really care. Luffy chuckled a bit, however, the next words made his eyes light up. Then came the day that Shanks and his crew came to my hometown. They all seemed so much larger than life compared to the little boy I was. I thought they were the coolest. His tone seemed happier as he talked about Shanks. Shanks took the time to talk and even play with me. He ended up saving my life and giving me his straw hat with the promise of returning it to him someday. It's what set me on the road to being a pirate. I wanted to be someone great just like him, Luffy said with a tone filled with admiration for red hair, Shanks. The others were quiet, letting him express his feelings. He looked sadly at the straw hat in his hands. Looking back at how I spent the 10 years since meeting him, I realized I didn't try as hard to improve myself as I should have. Most of my days were spent fooling around in the woods instead of doing things that could actually help me achieve my dream. He could have spent more time developing his powers instead of hunting menial animals or playing tag with predators. He could have spent more time infiltrating the capital and obtaining information, but he had thought studying was a joke. I always remember Ace telling me to read more or learn proper manners, but I always laughed it off and continued goofing off. I regret not listening to him now. I can't help but think, maybe if I tried more or trained harder, I would be stronger, strong enough to have saved Ace. His tone was soft and filled with regret. Luffy, Hancock whispered to herself. It was hard for her to see the man she loved like this, but she knew him well enough to know that he would persevere. I came to the Grand Line with a flimsy resolve, completely clueless to the world around me. I thought having a devil fruit made me invincible. I thought always shouting about being Pirate King would convince people I was the real deal. I might have been trying to convince myself instead. I put my crew in danger and made a lot of reckless decisions without the strength to back them up, which ended up hurting them more times than I can count. Although I have all those regrets, too many of them, I'm not going to let them weigh me down. I've been given a second chance at life, so to speak. My eyes have been opened to the truth of the world. My ignorance has cost me too much already. I want to change that. The fight on the Sabaody archipelago showed me, we are not ready for the new world. All the previous fights were won by the skin of our teeth. We would be slaughtered in the new world. It is a place we know nothing about, and after everything that's happened, I don't want to rush in with no knowledge and hope we make it out somehow. We need to be better. I need to be better. Oh, I've gone way off topic. Sorry about that, just needed to get it off my chest. So anyway, to answer your question, Hancock, while I do desperately want to see my crew, as I am now, I'm no good to them. Especially now that I've lost my devil fruit powers. I'm weaker, and as captain, I need to be strong enough to protect them should the need arise. After my performance in the war with my temporary alliance with Old Man Whitebeard, and the fact that the world knows my connection to Ace, and to top it off, they know who my father is, the world knows. People will be after us, Marines and pirates alike, only to make a name for themselves. I'm not strong enough to get through them all. I need to be better, stronger, faster, smarter. I just don't know how to go about doing that. Luffy finished, balling his fists tightly whilst making a frustrated expression. Ha ha ha. I came here to see you, Luffy-kun. I saw you fight in the war on the screens around the archipelago. Will you listen to my plan? Naturally, it is up to you if you accept it or not. Luffy faced him, his head already formulating theories about what Rayleigh would say. What plan are you talking about? Luffy asked with an interested expression. Well, I see no harm in telling you. I planned on taking you back to Marineford to do a little ceremony for the dead, so to speak. This is to tell the world that you're still alive and to make a statement as well. But the main purpose of doing this is to get a message to your crew, to let them know that you all will be taking a break from your journey to improve yourselves for the new world. I remember you all saying that you'd meet in 3 days at Shaki's bar. How about instead of 3 days, we push the date to 2 years? I was thinking we can do the message in the form of an ink mark on your arm. So, what are your thoughts on this? Rayleigh asked him seriously. Luffy was a little taken aback by the thought of not seeing his crew for 2 years. He wanted to get stronger, but he hadn't thought about what that would mean for the rest of his comrades. From that look on your face, I can see that you want to train me, but what about them? How will they improve? I don't even know where they are. I thought you might ask that. I do know where they are. The person who sent you flying to this island told me so. He saved your lives. Rayleigh said with a smile. You may not realize this, Luffy, but on the Sabaody archipelago, when your crew was cornered by Kizaru and those pacifistas, you had absolutely no hope of winning. When Bartholomew Kuma sent you all flying, he actually saved your lives. His actions allowed your crew to get out alive and live to fight another day. That was his last act as a human being, as I'm sure you know by now that his personality was erased, and he was turned into a human weapon. Rayleigh told him with all seriousness. He had come to have a great deal of respect for Kuma after his actions. But, why? Luffy was even more confused than before. That just brought up more questions. What was the Paw Guy's objective? As for your crewmates, he sent them to places where they can get hands-on training in their specialty skills. For example, your cook is with your friend from the war, Ivankov, and your swordsman is on an island belonging to Dracul Mahawk. They are with people who can improve them, and most importantly, they are safe. So now I ask you again. You are the captain. The decision lies with you. What do you think of my plan? Rayleigh asked him once again. Luffy smiled. It was not his usual face-splitting grin. It was a small one. However, the most important part was his silver eyes. They stormed with overwhelming confidence. There's only one answer. Those words gave everyone a pause after they left Luffy's lips. Marineford, the seat of power of the Marines, lay in ruins. It had suffered a war that could shatter entire countries, yet even now the justice symbol, while cracked, stood proud. Various construction workers performed shifts tirelessly to repair the broken island. Reporters were on the scene, recording everything that happened. There were few Marines. Some captains, lieutenants, and grunts stayed to protect the isle. The admirals and the top brass were either in Mariajoy or scouring the world to put up a strong front so that pirates would not dare attack them while they were weakened. On this isle, a marine warship arrived. However, instead of entering the bay, it started circling the whole island. Soon, reporters and Marines got suspicious of the ship's strange behavior. It then fired blank shots out of the cannon. The noise got the attention of everyone there. "What's going on? Has that ship entered into contact with us?" a captain yelled his orders. "No, that's impossible. What is he doing here?" A man with binoculars was shocked. On the front of the ship stood Monkey D. Luffy. Curiously, he seemed a bit different. Not even 10 days had passed, however, the man who was 5 feet 6 inches had grown. He stood at 5 feet 8 inches and he seemed more filled out. It was frankly inexplicable. For the Marines, the sudden change in appearance was unexpected but not entirely strange. Most had seen stranger things on the sea. "What happened?" a reporter asked. "It's Straw Hat Luffy," a grunt of the Marines responded. The reporters were shocked. The Marine captain quickly commanded the turrets to sink the ship. A column of water rose from the sea, intercepting the shots. Jinbei, who was under the sea, floated to the surface, confirming he was the one who intercepted the shots. "Is that Jinbei, the Knight of the Sea?" a Marine asked, pointing at the fishman. An old man on the rogue ship picked up pellets made of coal from a crate. They were small, the size of marbles. "There is one more enemy on board the rogue ship," the captain yelled. Another turret fired. The man on the ship threw the pellets, hitting all cannonballs mid-air with insane precision, making them explode. "Is that the living legend?" The former first mate of the Roger Pirates, the Dark King, Silver's Rayleigh. The spotter said, almost dying of fear. During all of this, Luffy put all of his focus on what Rayleigh did. Rayleigh's hand and wrist were very quick. The old warrior hit the cannonballs with the kind of precision Usopp would have. Normally, those coal pellets could not be thrown with that force, much less pierce iron shells. However, Luffy, while calling himself weak, knew within himself that he was a battle genius. Neither he nor his enemies ever admitted that, but it was the absolute truth. This was the man who replicated Soru and brought it to even greater heights with his Gear Second. This was the man who replicated the strength of giants with Gear Third. This was the man who defeated a god. He moved toward Rayleigh. He kicked the ground 10 times. He did not have his fruit anymore, so like those CP9 people, he moved by sheer instinct alone. He reached Rayleigh in a flash and picked up a bunch of pellets from the same crate. As 3 cannon shells approached, he threw the pellets with all his strength. Many missed, but some found their mark, and just like Rayleigh's, the shells exploded mid-air. However, because Luffy did not have the same finesse as Rayleigh, his strength was way off the charts. The pellets that missed continued at full strength, exploding upon reaching buildings or the ground. At that time, a cannonball that survived the onslaught approached the deck. Luffy jumped using Soru toward the rails of the ship, his feet cracking the wooden rail as he flexed his knees. His hands started accumulating power. He then swatted the cannonball with his bare hand, making it explode in the air to his left. "Shit! My aim was way off, and my strength is not properly adjusted for that yet," Luffy complained, all the while Rayleigh laughed. To Rayleigh, it would be a treat to teach this young man. "Remember what we are here for, Luffy. We are not here to destroy Marineford," the old man laughed. Shut up, old man," he yelled, embarrassed. They continued their patrol around the island 3 times. The turrets continued shooting, but they were impeded by Jinbei's water techniques, Rayleigh's pellets, and Luffy swatting the shells away with a backhand. "It's like a funeral procession on the sea," one reporter cried out, finally recognizing what they were doing. After sailing around 3 times, the rogue ship was already burning from the damage incurred. Luffy wanted more chances to throw pellets, but some shells had landed on the ship due to his inaccuracy in trying to imitate his new mentor. It was a disaster, and Luffy promised himself he would become better. 3 men jumped from the ship and landed right on Marineford Plaza. Luffy stood in the middle while Jinbei and Rayleigh were at his side. Both the Dark King and the Knight of the Sea started battling the Marines, killing them as Luffy calmly walked forward. A group of Marines rushed his way. His eyes, shadowed by his hat, showed a killer glare. His utter distaste for the world government was apparent for all to see. Luffy remembered what he said to Rayleigh back when they hijacked the ship. "Old man, I lost my rubber powers. I feel like I can't properly control my muscle strength." "Oh, that's to be expected. You are in a normal body again, although I believe your bloodline is inhuman." Garp was no human. "Is it going to be a problem?" Rayleigh had asked. "No, it's just that if I hit a normal Marine without controlling my strength, you're afraid you'll kill them." "No, I have no problems with killing. I am a pirate after all, and with the childhood I had, I am desensitized to death." "Oh, and why is that?" "My grandfather, when I was young, perhaps 5 or 6, he sometimes brought entire crews of pirates or high-profile bandits. He would wrap them around stones or giant trees. He made me watch as he ended them with a single blow. That man is a complete and utter psychopath. Not that I am any different." Rayleigh had sat there, stunned. "So, I am asking you, if I accidentally kill any of them, will you complain? While I am not on your grandfather's level of insanity, I am still called the Dark King, for a reason. I killed many during Roger's era. I was a common thief, you see." Rayleigh took a shot of brandy. "I see. I hope to hear some of your stories sometime." "Master." The Marines feared his glare but were not deterred. They charged, brandishing swords and axes. However, just when they reached him, he disappeared using his blatant speed. He appeared behind the crowd of Marines. They tried looking back, but every single one of them whited out, dropping to the ground and gasping for air. The impact was catastrophic. Some he had hit even harder, caving in their defenses. The reporters were stunned and fearful, but they followed him. They were a courageous bunch, taking photos of the dead bodies while recording his every move. Luffy shook the ox bell 16 times to honor the fallen pirates and to challenge the world government. He arrived at the giant scar from the battle. He pulled a flower from a pocket and dropped it, putting his hat to his chest in prayer, conveniently showing his ink tattoo, 3D2Y. The reporters took the money shot, capturing the destroyed Marineford fortress in the background. Rayleigh was indifferent to death, and Jinbei, while he did not hate humans like many of his race, felt there were very few he could connect with. He also held a grudge against the government for executing his friend. It was time to leave. Luffy walked toward Jinbei and his master. Some brave Marines tried to get in his way, but his murderous glare returned. They stood paralyzed, not moving an inch even when he stepped through them, not moving even after the 3 left on a whale called by Jinbei. A few days back on Amazon Lily, Luffy rested with his allies. "There's only one answer. I want to get stronger. I want them to get stronger, too. So we can be safer and face any challenges that come our way." "Let's do it," was Luffy's fierce reply. Rayleigh was content. "Jinbei, could you stick around until he gets better? We're going to need your help infiltrating Marineford and making an escape." "Are you up for it?" Rayleigh asked. "Anything to help Luffy-kun," was Jinbei's immediate response. "Jinbei, thank you so much for everything," Luffy said with utmost sincerity. "For helping me escape Impel Down, fighting the war, and saving my life." "Thank you." Jinbei laughed heartily. "There's no need for such words between friends, Luffy-kun." Luffy then turned to Hancock and gave her a genuine smile that made her almost swoon. "Hancock," Luffy said her name with so much passion she barely kept from fainting. "You've given me more help than I could ever ask for. You even went against your own wishes to take part in this war just to give me the chance to break into Impel Down. But most importantly, you gave me the chance to see my brother one last time. I honestly don't know what I could ever do to repay you." "Thank you." Hancock shed a tear. "You don't have to thank us, Luffy. We would do anything to help you. Always remember this." She smiled with a beauty that affected even an idiot like Luffy. Rayleigh and Jinbei just laughed at Luffy's awkwardness. The rest of the day was spent joking around. Luffy was happy. Even though Ace was gone, he still had people he could call family. "Please, I can't help but be selfish. Could you wait for me? Just a little longer. In 2 years, our adventure will resume. Until then, I will do my best. Then we can take the world and turn it on its head." Luffy held the straw hat in his hands as he looked toward the horizon. He wondered what the 2 years ahead of him would entail. One thing was certain. He would devote himself to becoming the strongest so he wouldn't lose anyone ever again.